Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Secession Social Studies. Today we're going to be covering the election of 1860 and Southern secession. So to start, we're going to talk about Abraham Lincoln. Where did he come from? To trace his footsteps, he was born in Kentucky and eventually moved to Indiana and Illinois. But where does Lincoln come from on the political front? The abolitionist Whigs from Kansas broke and created the new Republican Party and chose Lincoln to represent them. Democrat Stephen Douglas, the co-author and full supporter of the 1854 Kansas-Nebraska Act, had been the senator of Illinois since 1847. In the election of 1858, Illinois Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln to run against Douglas for the Senate seat. Why is this important? What does this election in a Midwestern state mean to many Americans? What would be the biggest argument? The two men held a series of debates that became famously known as the Lincoln-Douglas debates. In 1858, the Lincoln-Douglas debates were based heavily on the institution of slavery. Abraham Lincoln stressed that the central issue of his campaign was the spread of slavery in the Western territories. Abraham Lincoln condemned the institution of slavery. He believed that if a territory or state already had slaves, they could keep them, and any new territories or states had to be abolitionist. Stephen Douglas balked at Lincoln when he criticized him heavily for saying that the United States couldn't survive as a half-free and half-slave union. Douglas believed that could not happen. In August of 1858, Senator Douglas put forth the Freeport Doctrine, which stressed that people had the right to introduce or exclude slavery, not the government, and police forces would enforce their decision even if the decision was contradicted by the Supreme Court. Douglas believed that territories could effectively ban slavery by failing to make laws that supported it. And this pleased many Northern Democrats but angered the Southerners. The issuance of the doctrine effectively sealed the victory for Douglas. However, the Lincoln-Douglas debates propelled Lincoln into the spotlight and garnered support for the new Republican Party, ultimately leading to Lincoln becoming president. When it came to selecting a candidate for the presidency in 1860, it didn't matter who was chosen. Slavery was at the heart of the parties. Southern Democrats met in Charleston, South Carolina, arguably the epicenter of the institution of slavery and the home state of states' rights activist John C. Calhoun. In April of 1860, arguments among Northern and Southerners argued feverishly about who was going to represent their party. Northern Democrats supported Illinois Senator and Lincoln slayer Stephen Douglas. Southerners scoffed at Douglas because they felt he was a traitor for supporting popular sovereignty when deciding slavery. Southern Democrats responded by selecting then Vice President John C. Breckinridge, splitting the Democratic Party. The table was set. The election would be between Douglas, Breckinridge, and the Constitutional Union Party member of John Bell of Tennessee. Republicans met in Chicago, Illinois, and argued that they needed a strong candidate that would beat the divided Democratic Party. In order to win, their candidate needed to carry the North and win the majority of the Electoral College. In order to do that, they chose the man who represented hard work and the frontier, Abraham Lincoln. Republicans felt that in order to be victorious, Lincoln would need to carry the states of Pennsylvania, Illinois, New Jersey, and Indiana. Southerners despised Lincoln enough to not cast one vote for him. They felt if Lincoln was elected, he would destroy their way of life. But what does that actually mean? Lincoln had many goals for his presidency. First and foremost, Lincoln wanted to preserve the Union. He knew that a house divided could not stand. He felt that if the South tried to leave the Union, that the United States would crumble. This fear guided his view on the institution of slavery. He promised during his campaign that he would not abolish slavery everywhere, or even just the places where it existed. Lincoln did not want slavery to spread into the new territories in the West. Southerners did not believe a word of it. The election results of 1860 fractured the nation. Abraham Lincoln did not travel or campaign in any Southern state. If we were to look at a map, the states that Lincoln won are the majority of the northern states. He could not win any southern states. John Bell won a state, Breckinridge won a state, and even Stephen Douglas, the previous Lincoln slayer, won some states too. And with 4 candidates running for president, Lincoln was able to win the presidency by only winning 40% of the popular vote, which totaled 180 electoral votes. This meant that 60% of American voters selected someone other than Lincoln. Truth be told, Abraham Lincoln was not even a choice on Southern ballots. 0 votes for Lincoln came from the South. The election results infuriated Southerners. The question was, how would the South respond to the election results? Remember, Lincoln's main goal when running for president was to preserve the Union. He understood what could happen if division struck the nation, and he was right. Even though Lincoln promised the Southern states that he would not abolish the institution of slavery, only limited its expansion, Southerners would have none of it. They believed that their economy and their way of life would be destroyed. The debate over slavery and Lincoln's election to the presidency led Southern states to secede or leave the Union. The South Carolina legislature met in Charleston to discuss secession. South Carolinians felt that withdrawing from the Union would benefit them, and it was their constitutional right. They felt that because they voluntarily joined the Union, that it should be their state's rights to leave. Lincoln tried to persuade South Carolina not to leave. However, after the election, South Carolina met and decided that they would hold a secession convention, and on December 20th, 1860, by a vote of 169 to 0, the South Carolina legislature enacted an ordinance that the union now subsisting between South Carolina and the other states under the name of the United States of America is hereby dissolved. And after 6 more states seceded from the Union, the Confederate States of America was born. So the South Carolina Ordinance of Secession states, "We the people of the state of South Carolina, in convention assembled, do declare and ordain, and it's hereby declared and ordained, that the ordinance adopted by us in the convention on the 23rd of May, in the year of our Lord 1788, whereby the Constitution of the United States of America was ratified, and also all acts and parts acts of the General Assembly of this state ratifying amendments of the said Constitution are hereby repealed, and that now the Union now subsisting between South Carolina and other states under the name the United States of America is hereby dissolved. Done at Charleston, the 20th day of December in the year of our Lord 1860. Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated on March 4th, 1861. He heard what was happening in the South and was completely opposed to it. He believed that the Southern states could not leave the Union because they were unhappy with the federal government's position on slavery. The United States was a country that could not be split based on the Constitution. Lincoln announced in his inaugural address that he would keep all government property in the seceding states, which included federal forts and arsenals. He had hoped that before long the Southern states would return to the Union. Now you have to remember that states seceded in different order. There were a number of states that seceded before the bombing of Fort Sumter. Then there was a list of states that seceded after the bombing of Fort Sumter and the beginning of the Civil War. And there was also some border states. And what these border states were is they did not secede from the Union, but they still held slaves. And Abraham Lincoln felt that these were very important because they bordered the Confederacy and the Union, the North and the South. And Lincoln knew he had to keep these states. Other states witnessed what happened in South Carolina and followed suit. Remember, by February 1st, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas had all seceded from the Union. Southern delegates met in Montgomery, Alabama to create a government named the Confederate States of America and elected Jefferson Davis of Mississippi as its president. Now the United States unofficially had 2 presidents. In an attempt to stave off secession, Kentucky was called a border state. This meant that the state was considered a slave state, but it supported Lincoln, opposed secession, and stayed loyal to the Union. This was an issue that plagued Kentucky Senator John Crittenden. Crittenden had 2 older sons who became generals in the Army. Unfortunately, one became a general in the Union, while the other was a general of the Confederacy. In a last-ditch effort to avoid the war and possibly a loss of both of his sons, Crittenden proposed a series of constitutional amendments that he hoped would appease the South by protecting slavery. He proposed that the Missouri Compromise divide, the 3630 line, could extend all the way to the Pacific Ocean and federally protect slavery in the South. President Lincoln believed that there could be no compromise about the extension of slavery. The South rejected the compromise and the amendments were rejected. The Southern states seceding set the stage for the American Civil War. I'll see you next time.